Hey YouTube, I've been inspired to get in the kitchen and do some canning, and by all the jarred up January videos that have been coming out here lately, all those have just been great videos. If you're not following some of these people who are already doing that, and there's like 11 of them I think that have collaborated on this, and I am not a part of this collaboration. I'm just, like I said, I'm inspired to get in here and do some canning. Anyway, if you'll just do a search on jarred up January, and you should be able to start seeing these videos come up. And most of you already know Sutton Days, Heather the Needy Homesteader, Angie's Pantry, and there's so many more involved in this, and some of them were new to me even. But anyway, what I'm going to be canning today is, I'm going to say right now, this is not a USDA approved recipe. This is not a ball approved recipe. I am taking my beef stroganoff recipe and I am going to make it jar safe. I've already made a video of making beef stroganoff, and I'll put a link to it below and try to put the iCard thingy in the corner if you want to go see that. I will put the recipe for making my beef stroganoff below as well, or try to remember to. But there's certain things in it that cannot be jarred up. So in making this canning recipe, I am going to be following the meat time advised in the USDA Complete Guide to Home Canning. Okay, so that is the item in this recipe that will require the longest canning time, so that's what we're going to go with. All right, so my recipe calls for sirloin steak. I've got a top sirloin steak, and I'm actually going to do this one for our dinner tonight because I'd already planned on having beef stroganoff for dinner tonight. They were so expensive on the top sirloin steaks, and I'm just doing a couple of jars because I want to see how this works out for us before I invest a lot of time and money in meat and canning, to know if we really like this as a shelf-stable canning item, jarred item. So I grabbed a beef round sirloin tip roast. I'm going to slice this in half and then cut it up into chunks, and then I'm going to par cook them. Okay. I debated on the mushrooms because the fresh mushrooms, in making this a shelf stable, I feel like I would need to pre-blanch these so that they shrink down and fit in the jar better, because right now they're got a lot of air in them, and as they cook down, you know, mushrooms cook down to, you know, about a quarter of their size. They get a whole lot smaller. So if I put them in there fresh like this in the jar, they're going to shrink as they sit in the pressure canner for 90 minutes. And I'm worried about the headspace going down because they'll be absorbing so much liquid. So I may leave these out. I may try them in one jar. We'll see how it goes. I will cook them up or blanch them somewhat before putting them in the jar though. Okay, one of the things in my recipe is flour. Will not be putting that in the jar. Flour is not safe to can, so we're leaving that completely out. The other thing I will not be putting in the jar is the sour cream. The sour cream will be something that when I crack open a jar to fix this as a meal and start heating it up, I'll add the sour cream then. Okay, so no sour cream in this, no dairy products are safe to can up either. All right, that's about it. Other than that, we've got going in here. I'm going to mix up, my recipe usually uses beef bouillon granules. I'm going to use Better Than Bouillon mixed in with water. Lemon juice, red wine vinegar, got some garlic. I'm going to add onion powder in place of onions because my husband doesn't like onions, and I've got salt and pepper back there. All that's going to go in the water mixture that I'm going to mix up, along with the pan drippings from when I par cooked the meat. So let me get all the meat cut up and par cooked, and we'll come back when I'm ready to start mixing the beef broth together to pour over the meat in the jars. Okay? Alright. Got my meat all cut up into nice sized chunks, left some fat on there to give it a little extra flavoring. I'm going to stick this in at the oven in this lightly seasoned, lightly oiled cast iron skillet, 350. I'm going to start at 10 minutes. Par cooking it. I'm going to check it and see how it looks at 10 minutes and then maybe 20 minutes until I'm happy with how it looks par cooked, and we'll pull it out. I'll let you know the official time. I have not seasoned this in any way. I think I'm going to sprinkle some of the onion powder on it now though. In fact, let's just do that while you watch. A little onion powder, not going to hurt anything. Clean hands, I just washed them from cutting this all up. Alright, little onion powder, there you go. Now I gotta wash my hands again. Alright, let's go in the oven now. I've got 6 cups of water in here. I figure I'm gonna need at least a cup of water, or more, maybe a cup and a half, not water, but broth, per jar. I'm gonna be putting mine in the 1.5 jars. A pint's not quite enough for my husband and I. He's a healthy eater. A quart I think would be too much, but I normally use at least a cup of broth per recipe anyway. So I'm gonna make some. I'm hoping to get at least 3 jars out of this. We'll see. But we're going to. I've got 6 cups in here. I'm gonna measure out the Better Than Bouillon. You're supposed to use 1 teaspoon per 8 ounces of boiling water. This isn't boiling water yet, but I'm going to heat it up so it will be. So I'm going to put in equivalent of about 6 teaspoons. 1. To this, I'm going to add a tablespoon for every cup. So I'm going to use 6 tablespoons of lemon juice. And a tablespoon for every cup of the red wine vinegar, so also 6. I'm also going to use, let's see, half a teaspoon of salt for every cup, so I've got 6 in there. That'd be about 2.5 teaspoons. Now that, I think I'm just going to go with 2 teaspoons and be good with that. And you know what, I probably should have used canning salt in that, but oh well, too late now. I'm going to add, it's just going to be cooked. I'm going to add about a teaspoon of onion powder to this. And I'm going to add, let's see, a teaspoon of pepper. Alright, there's that. I'm going to wait and put the garlic in just a bit after it's heated up. So I'm going to put this on the stove top, let it be heating up and mixing, and we'll bring you back in a little bit. This is what our meat's looking like after about 10 minutes in at 350, so I'm going to put it in for another 10 minutes and see how it looks. I just gave it a stir so it gets a little evenly parred up there. I apologize about the lighting now. Anyway, this is heated up fairly well. It's not come to quite a boil yet, so I'm going to add 6 teaspoons of garlic, just minced. And I'm going to bring this up to a boil. And I've got my jars washed. I've got 4 1.5 and I've got a pint in there also. I've already put some quart jars of water in there to fill up the extra space because I don't want them tipping over in the cooking process and the pressure canning process. You know, because there's nothing there to hold them in place. So use lids when doing this, and get off there. That way you're not wasting new lids on jars of water unless you want to store jars of water. I don't have room to do that. Alright, I can't fit everything in the screen, but and I'm going to have to reach across some. Got me a hot jar out of the canner. I've drained off my meat, my par cooked meat. I put the drippings in the broth. I didn't have time to grab the camera and try to set that up to do that. So this first jar we're definitely going to add some mushrooms, which I also par cooked those down a little bit, just blanched them a little bit. So I'm going to add some of those in there. Kind of layer this up. I probably got enough to do 1 jar of that. I'm going to have to leave an inch of head space. Let's just mushrooms. Mushrooms in there. So yeah, we got more room for meat. I guess I'm going to be lucky to get 2 pint-and-a-half jars out of this. Kind of looking that way. Let's see, I'm going to use my... We're going to go ahead and put all the mushrooms in here that we blanched. So we shrunk them up. You can see a big difference in size in the mushrooms from that to, you know, of course that's broken, but there's a big difference in how much that shrunk up just by blanching it for a few minutes. So alright, looks like I got enough room for a little more meat. Not a whole lot, a few more pieces. Okay, let's start ladling some broth in here. Stuff's there. Let's do some debubbling. And you've got a view. Really well. Get those mushrooms down in there. The mushrooms are wanting to float to the top. So I really should have put more meat. Put them under more of the meat. So, alright, just a tad smidge bit more. Juice. Let's see, where are we at? Smidge more. I'm not even going to worry about putting the funnel on there. Alright, that looks good. Alright. And my paper towel soaked in vinegar. I didn't mean for it to soak up that much vinegar. Wipe the rim. Definitely use vinegar on this since we're dealing with a oily meat. Get me a hot ring or hot lid out. Finger tight, and in the canner it goes. I'm going to say that looks pretty good. Yep. Hopefully it's going to turn out good. I did not have enough meat to fill another pint-and-a-half jar. It wouldn't even fill a pint jar, so I'm going to throw that in with my dinner tonight. I did decide to go ahead and can up some of the excess broth, so I have stroganoff broth on hand. If I need it, I can cook up meat and throw the broth in there and we're ready to go. Or I can use it as a soup base. You know, doesn't matter, anything. Alright, so this is going in the canner. I'm going to finish filling the canner up with water, quarts of water, so it's full, and we'll bring you back. This is what the canner looks like loaded up. The jars with writing on the lids are old lids because I've just got, these are just water. So I only got, like I said, 1.5 pints of beef stroganoff mixed up and only a pint of excess broth for it. So a little disappointing. I was hoping for a little more, but being that this is an experimental recipe for me, it's probably a good thing. Because if we don't like it this way, then hey, I'm not out that much. Alright, we're gonna, we've already checked our lid to go on the canner to make sure that the vent pipe is clear. And we're fixing to put that on, tighten it down, and get it venting for 10 minutes. Got a good steady stream of steam going there, so I've started venting my canner for 10 minutes. Here is our finished product. Got 1 jar with the mushrooms, the 1 jar without the mushrooms, and the 1 jar of just the broth. So I'm going to wait a little bit since we just had stroganoff the other night before trying these. I will try to remember to do a review on them when we do. So anyway, I appreciate you coming along on this little adventure with me, and hope you learned something. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them below. I'll answer you as soon as I possibly can. Happy canning!